Oh, my future Marvel enthusiasts. So you've definitely heard about the new Avengers movie, Endgame. But I guess you don't really understand all the hype about it. Well, it is hype. Maybe you don't really have a desire to see it, or one of your friends invited you, or something like that. And you're about to find out everything. And I mean everything about the MCU. Keep in mind, I will be talking about the events of Endgame. So at that point, I will say, you can stop the video right here. We're going to talk about Endgame. Go watch the movie if you like, and then come back. Let's start from the beginning. There are a lot of Marvel movies. There's currently 22 that have been released. Starting off with Captain America, the First Avenger. Then we go to Captain Marvel, Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, Thor, The Avengers, the original one, Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, Captain America Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Avengers Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, Captain America Civil War, Black Panther, Spider-Man Homecoming, Doctor Strange, Thor Ragnarok, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. As the title states, Captain America, or Cap, as I may be calling him, is the first Avenger. He was the first one to be born. He was just the first one in general. And this movie is set in the 1940s, in the middle of World War II. But now you must be thinking, wait a sec, wasn't he like in the trailers for the new ones? Like the new Endgame and all that stuff? I'll get to that. I'll get to how that's possible, how he's there. But for now, let's just know he is. Before Steve Rogers, Captain America, became Captain America, he was this scrawny, skinny kid, like skinnier than me. I know, like hard to believe.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Anyway, because of his dedication and his selfishness, as we can see him jumping on a grenade.
Grenade! Oh my God! Get away! Get back! Dummy grenade.
They gave him this experimental super soldier serum, which turned him into the super buff Captain America Steve Rogers that we know today. He fights off the bad guy, yada yada yada. He ends up flying his plane into the ocean in order to save the day.
I gotta put her in the water.
Please, don't do this. We have time. We can work it out.
Right now I'm in the middle of nowhere. If I wait any longer, a lot of people are gonna die.
And then getting frozen. Now he is frozen there for 70 years, which is how he goes from the 40s to the 2010s. Basically just a human that was had gotten powers from a reactor, from a ship, and then she was kidnapped because of that, got her mind wiped. Her captors tried to harness her power and like make her part of their team. It worked for a little while, then it backfired, then she turned on them and took them all out and realized her true power because they were kind of like dampening her powers with this thing in her neck or something, to make her less powerful so they could control her easier. Once she realized that, everything was going on, and now she's like one of the most powerful people in the Marvel Universe.
I've been fighting with one arm tied behind my back.
Here that started all, the first MCU movie that had come out. Now, Tony Stark starts as this selfish, self-centered, billionaire, genius, playboy, philanthropist, as they call him. And basically, what he's selling weapons when he gets kidnapped by terrorists, and they try to force him to create this weapon for him. Although he doesn't do that. He instead creates an Iron Man suit, Iron Man, Tony Stark, along with this arc reactor to keep his arc going, and he uses this to escape, and he just gets out of there, and then but little does he know when he gets back to Stark Industries back in New York, his dad's partner, who has assumed the role as the head of Stark Industries, has been behind this whole thing, had gotten him kidnapped by the terrorists, and is trying to upend Stark Industries from under him, and creates his own Iron Man suit, and is going against him, and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, he wins, and then at the end, Iron Man publicly admits that, or Tony Stark publicly admits that he is Iron Man.
I am Iron Man.
So after Tony has told the world that he is Iron Man, he begins to continue to make more and more Iron Man suits, but for peaceful reasons, refusing to sell his designs to anyone because he doesn't really want to get into those weapons dealings like he did in the last movie. We all know how that turned out. But with this the arc reactor that is powering his heart now beginning to poison him, he believes he's probably going to die. So at what he thinks is going to be his last birthday, he gets really drunk wearing one of the Iron Man suits, which probably isn't a good idea with all the weapons that are in there. And he's just starting going crazy. So what his friend does, Rory, he puts on one of Tony's Iron Man suits and then tries to restrain him. So, and then along with that, we also have this new enemy who has a vendetta with his family because of something his father did to his father. And he's built his own army of Iron Man suits after he's gotten a copy of some of the designs. And he's this whole army of Iron Man suits that he's now using to go against Iron Man. But unfortunately, he has the help of a couple of members. He has the help of Rory, Nick Fury, and Black Widow to help him out. The Hulk is a scientist named Bruce Banner who's been exposed to this gamma radiation and basically just becomes this big green gorilla thing, aka the Hulk, when he gets angry. And that's all you really need to know about him.
I'm always angry.
Smash.
Thor is kind of like Iron Man in the way that he when he first starts off his story, he's pretty selfish and arrogant, but he is otherwise known as the God of Thunder. He is an Asgardian from Asgard, part of space, all that stuff. We'll get into that later. But anyway, he is thrown out of Asgard and onto Earth, and where he then loses his hammer Mjolnir, which basically is just this super hammer, help him control lightning, but you need to be worthy, as deemed by the Asgardian gods, in order to wield it. So he loses his worthiness and is then no longer able to grab Mjolnir. So he goes on this quest on Earth to become worthy. Of course it works, and he regains Mjolnir back. the Avengers, the original Avengers movies, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. So we have Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, and Hawkeye. Black Widow and Hawkeye, they still don't have movies. The rest of them you should know pretty much about from the previous movies. But anyway, they all come together for the first time to fight off Thor's brother Loki, who is known as the Goddess Mischief, who has brought his crazy army of these weird creatures to New York and basically destroys it. Iron Man 3. So in the past, Iron Man had run into this scientist who had been working on this revolutionary technology in order to recreate limbs. So like someone that like had their arm cut off here could just like grow it back. But what do you call it? Tony turned him down. But that was years ago. So then years later, when the movie takes place, he's been still working on this. And he's doing human trials. Now, the serum that he's been using is not safe. It has been blowing up the test subjects. So he really just needs Tony's help. So in order to get his help, he kidnaps Pepper Potts, his girlfriend, and injects her with the serum, which would make her, blow up if he didn't help her. If he didn't help the mad scientist. So he does that and saves her, and then eventually uses all of the rest of his Iron Man suits, have him come in remotely, and just defeats him, and then has all of his Iron Man suits blow up. Thor: The Dark World. Here we have Jane, Thor's girlfriend from Earth. She gets infected or cursed with the Aether, aka the Reality Stone, and various creatures come and attack Asgard, where they brought Jane for protection in order to get it. And in the process, Thor's mother ends up dying in trying to protect Jane, and Loki also fakes his death in trying to destroy the Aether, and then pretends to be Odin at the very end of this movie.
Go, my son.
Thank you, Father. No. Thank you.
Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So after Cap has been trying to get used to the 2010s after being frozen for 70 years, a new threat comes up. It's an international assassin known as the Winter Soldier. Now, the Winter Soldier just happens to be Cap's best friend from the 40s, Bucky. Now, how did Bucky get here? Well, he was kidnapped and then brainwashed by Hydra, who goes all the way back to the Nazis. And they basically put him in cryo-freeze to get him to this time. And then they just make him become this international assassin for him. So now Cap's dilemma is, how does he defeat him without losing his friend? Well, he figures out a way. He gets through to him, but he still has a little bit of brainwash still in him. So the Hydra is still able to reach him. So what they do is Cap brings him to Wakanda. From Black Panther, which we will learn about in a little while, and then at the very end, in the end credit scene, and we see him getting put back into cryo freeze until they have figured out a way to remove the brainwash from him. Guardians of the Galaxy. This is one of my all-time favorites, just because of how funny it is. So here we have an unlikely group of criminals being arrested and put in the same prison. We have Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, Rocket, and Groot. Now they all work together in order to escape this prison, and they just start to just work together. Now, along the way with a lot of laughs, they end up saving the world but not in the most conventional way. They do it with a dance battle. And then ends with the dance battle of Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, grabbing on to the Power Stone, which he should not be able to do as a human. But we'll figure out why he's able to do that in a little bit.
Things are gonna get easier. Ooh, child, things will get brighter. Listen to these words. Ooh, child, things are gonna get easier. Ooh, child, things will get brighter. Then bring it down hard. Someday. Take it back.
What are you doing?
I'm distracting you, you big turd blossom.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Yep, you guessed it. Peter Quill isn't all human. He's only half human. The other half of him is celestial, which basically means he's like a god, but god with a small g. As they figure that out when they meet Peter's father, who just happens to meet them randomly in the universe. But they find out that Peter's father has a plan for world domination, which he needs Peter to do it because he doesn't have enough power on his own to get it done. So, in order to stop him, they end up having to kill Peter's father, Ego the Living Planet, which then ends Peter's celestial side because his father, being his planet, is kind of like the source of his power.
Kill me. You'll be just like everybody else.
What's so wrong with that?
So, Avengers Age of Ultron. So, Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, the two main scientists of the Avenger group, they start to create this AI in order to just help the world out, make it more peaceable. But of course, as in any robot movie, the robot becomes self-aware and then plots against the world. And yada yada yada. We get the They have another big battle in New York. But on the bright side, we do get introduced to the twins, aka Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Although Quicksilver isn't around for too long, but Scarlet Witch is very important as she is very, very powerful.
Avengers!
Ant-Man. So, Ant-Man is one of my favorites just because of how funny it is, especially with this one guy, Lewis, who's he's just great in the way he talks. Anyway, so we have Scott Lang, who becomes the Ant-Man, who has just been released from prison, and his friends convince him to do one last heist on this guy named Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man. Now, Hank Pym wants Scott to rob him so he can see if he's, worthy of the Ant-Man suit. He robs him, he gets the suit, he tries it on, he kind of freaks out. Anyway, it's basically a convict turned good story, and where he helps Hank defeat his old protege, who's now plans on mass producing and selling these his own version of Ant-Man suits.
Why don't you pick on someone your own size?
Not just me!
Captain America Civil War. After the recent events of Avengers Age of Ultron, the government feels that the Avengers aren't really disciplined enough, so they create the Sokovia Accords to kind of control them. Now, not everyone is okay with this. It basically splits up 50-50 in all the superheroes we now have in the MCU. Team Iron Man and Team Cap. On Team Iron Man, we have War Machine, Black Widow, Black Panther, The Vision, and Spider-Man. And on Team Cap, we have Hawkeye, Sharon Carter, Falcon, Bucky Barnes, Ant-Man, and Scarlet Witch. Now, so basically, all hell is breaking loose, and just a lot of rivalry. Everything's going crazy. Tony is almost killed by Cap and Bucky, and we get to see Spider-Man for the first time. Black Panther. If you haven't heard of Black Panther, you've probably been living under a rock. It's one of the MCU's most popular and successful movies. So Black Panther is from Wakanda. That's this basically secret city in Africa, who's been basically hidden from the outside world, who everyone thinks is poor, but is really this like ultra tacked out nation, more advanced than anyone in the world. And that is all because of this special, powerful metal called vibranium. It's one of the most powerful metals on the planet. Now, they have a boatload of it because of a crater of it that had smashed into its land years and years ago. Now, usually the Black Panther is the king of Wakanda. But at this point, it's his son because the king had been killed at the beginning of Captain America Civil War. So, basically, it starts off with T'Challa, our new Black Panther, being waiting to be challenged by anyone who has a royal lineage. Nothing happens, so he becomes king. But a little later, we find that the old king, the one that had been killed, had a brother who was a traitor, so he was killed, but he had a son that no one knew about. So his son comes off and challenges T'Challa for the throne. Now, he wins. So, T'Challa's cousin, Killmonger, who is basically our villain of the story, becomes king. And while almost killing T'Challa. And now because of this, Killmonger is not a very good king, so a lot of people still want T'Challa to be king. Now, because he's almost dead, they basically have to go run away, get him healed up, blah, 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 and get him back to full health, and then re-challenge him for the throne, which doesn't end up too well, but it does end up working in the end, with Killmonger ending up killing himself, and everything's back to normal and good. Spider-Man Homecoming. We have Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, who's probably one of the most popular superheroes ever. And we all know his basic origin story, radioactive spider and all that. But thankfully that's not what this movie is about, because let's be honest, we've seen that way too many times. But anyway, so what we have here is Spider-Man's romantic interest. His father is the basic villain. He is the Vulture. And he has the help of Ned, Spider-Man's best friend, and Tony Stark, who's basically become a father figure to Peter, to help defeat Vulture. They end up doing it, everything's good, and Spider-Man becomes more mature and seems more used to his powers, and everything's good.
Go home, Pete.
I'm trying to save you!
Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange, aka the Sorcerer Supreme, aka Stephen Strange, starts off as a neurosurgeon who has gotten very injured and has lost most of the use of his hands. So in order to be able to redo surgery, he turns to anything he can, which ends up leading him to the mystical arts and trying to regain the use of his hands. But he becomes accustomed to them, actually starts to like it, and becomes the Sorcerer Supreme. Now he gets the use of the Time Stone, which he then has to use, not to the liking of many of his colleagues, in order to create a time loop, in order to save the day and win the battle.
You will spend eternity dying.
Yes. But everyone on Earth will live.
But you will suffer. Pain's an old friend.
Dormammu! I come to bargain. Dormammu! Dormammu! Dormammu!
Thor Ragnarok. Here we see Thor finally take on a less arrogant role, where he tries to stop this eternal destruction only of Asgard, only known as Ragnarok. Now, in doing that, he runs into his sister, who he didn't know he had, who is much powerful than him, who she then sent to this faraway junkyard place where he runs into the Hulk. So those two, they get out of there and they try to defeat Hela. Doesn't really work out, so they end up just releasing Ragnarok and letting him destroy it, as it's better for that to happen than to let his sister Hela retake over Asgard.
You want Asgard? It's yours.
Whatever game you're playing, it won't work. You can't defeat me.
No, I know. But he can.
Ant-Man and the Wasp. So we still have Scott Lang as Ant-Man, but now we also have the Wasp, who is Hank Pym's daughter, Hope, who's about the same age as Scott. Now, she has a different version of the Ant-Man suit, a more modern one, who she can actually fly. So after the events of the first Ant-Man, where Ant-Man had gone to the quantum realm and come back, they realized that maybe they can go save their mom. So that's basically their journey to get into the quantum realm and be able to come back out. And while in the quantum realm, Hope's mom, Hank's wife, had realized that the quantum realm energy in there has healing power. So at the end credit scene, they send Scott back into the quantum realm to retrieve some of the energy, but he gets stuck there because something happens to Hank, Hope, and the mother while Scott's in there.
4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, Scott, this is a mic check.
Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. How's everybody doing tonight in the quantum realm?
Scott, we read you.
I just want to make sure. Okay, healing particle secured for our new ghost friend.
Great. Preparing for re-entry in 5, 4, 3.
Hello? Ha ha, very funny. Hank, quit screwing around. You told me yourself not to screw around. Hank! Hope? Janet! Guys. Okay, seriously, don't joke around. Bring me up, let's go. Guys!
Avengers Infinity War, the big one. So basically, this big purple guy named Thanos has been trying to gather the 6 Infinity Stones over the last couple years. Now, we had a couple run-ins with a couple of the Infinity Stones over the last years. We got Guardians of the Galaxy with the Power Stones. We got Thor with the Aether, the Reality Stone. We got Doctor Strange with the Time Stone, etc., etc. So basically, he is trying to retrieve all of the Infinity Stones so he can do his master plan, which is to eliminate 50% of all living creatures in order to not have any more starvation, less pollution, just make everything better, but at a very, very, very big cost, which no one wants to take other than him. He's the only person that he believes is capable of making the decision that needs to be made for the world. And guess what? He wins. He wipes out 50%. And we see many of our heroes disappear. As what I said with the Ant-Man, that is what happened to Hank, Hope, and the mother.
No place to die. No, 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 no. Groot.
Start. Here we have Avengers Endgame. So if you remember what I said before, if you do still want to go see this movie after you've gotten the information from before, you can go ahead, stop the video here, go watch it, come back. Alright, now let's get into it. So Avengers Endgame. This, it starts off basically right after Infinity War. Right after everyone's disappeared. They're still trying to get used to what's going on. They're trying to figure out how they can stop Thanos and just get everything good. So, at the end of Infinity War, everyone was disappearing. Nick Fury, who was the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., had called Captain Marvel, who we remember from the years before, who's still one of the most powerful Avengers. She gets called for help. So now, her with the rest of the Avengers that we still have that haven't been dusted and snapped away, they go find Thanos. But when they find him, they realize that he has destroyed the Infinity Stones using the Infinity Stones. So he made it so there was no way for everyone to come back. Which basically, Thor just cuts off his head, and that's the end of it, and then they're all really upset. So, but then we skip ahead 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. So they went 5 years without anyone. With half the population gone. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Meanwhile, Scott Lang, the Ant-Man, is still trapped in the quantum realm because everyone that knew how to get him out has been dusted. And they didn't know if he was alive either. But then, so 5 years later, we then have a rat who goes on to the control panel in the van of the quantum realm thing, and just happens to press all the right buttons and gets him out. Now, for him, it hasn't been 5 years. It's only been 5 hours, which then sparks the idea of the time heist. So they do this. They use the quantum realm in order to time travel to different times throughout when the Avengers had had a run-in with one of the Infinity Stones. And they go back in time to get all 6, They do that, but while they do that, the Thanos from one of those times gets knowledge of it, and then comes to the present time, which currently is 2024, and fights them off and almost wipes out 50% for a second time after it has just come back. But he doesn't. Thanos ends up dying for the second time in the movie because of Tony Stark's sacrifice, and he used the Infinity Stones, which to a human would basically kill them. Any other creature almost kill them. Thanos almost died using it. Hulk almost died bringing everyone back. It's just a crazy experience. And then we also had Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow, who had sacrificed herself in getting the Soul Stone, because the Soul Stone is a soul for a soul. So someone has to be sacrificed. She basically forced herself into being sacrificed, and got the Soul Stone for them. And now then at the end we have Captain America, who is going to return all the time stones. All the Infinity Stones back into their original times, and then come right back. Although he doesn't do that, he decides, I want the life that I should have had, because remember, he was originally from the 1940s. So after he returns all the Infinity Stones, he goes back to the 40s and lives out the rest of his life with Peggy. And then at the end, we see Captain America handing off the mantle of Captain America off to Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon. Now this movie isn't currently out yet. It's coming out in just about a month, on July 5th. And this is the only new Marvel movie that we have confirmed with a trailer, and everything like that, and a specific date. Now this will be the last movie of this phase of Marvel, Phase 3, and it'll also just be talking about all of how the world is reacting after the events of Endgame, after everyone has been gone for 5 years, and now everyone's dealing with everyone coming back, and just everything going on, along with Spider-Man kind of shedding the role of, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and kind of becoming more of like a global hero. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Now, this movie has been in the works for a while. It was originally set to release pretty early, although now it's been pushed way back since the director James Gunn was fired, and then the actor that played Drax, Dave Bautista, didn't want to film without him. Then he got rehired, and now everything's back on track, but it was pushed way back. Now, this movie will bring the Guardians franchise to an end. There won't be any more Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And this is going to do the original Guardians of the Galaxy group with Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, Rocket, and Groot still, but it's also going to feature Nebula and Mantis. The Black Widow movie. Now, along with just knowing it's a prequel, we don't really know much about it yet, or the story, or really anything. We just know the casting has begun, and in addition to Scarlett Johansson, aka Nat Black Widow, we also have Florence Pugh and David Harbour and Rachel Weisz in the casting. Now, what we know about the Eternals is pretty much just for the comics. They're basically just kind of like the Celestials, like Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy, his father, Ego the Living Planet, God with a small g. They're basically those kind of people, and we don't really know much about it, except that it's there's going to be a romance at the center of it, with the relationship between Icarus and Cersei. And the cast is also starting to come together. We have Angelina Jolie and Kumani Najani Achat to star in it. So for Doctor Strange and for Black Panther, we really don't know too much about it, as there hasn't been any hirings of directors yet. But then with Shang-Chi, we do know a little more, as a director was hired in March of 2019, Daniel Cretton, and he's going to be taking over that. And that will also be the Marvel's first Kung Fu movie. And that's really all you really need to know about Marvel. That's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed and learned something.